younger and growing up in my formative years as a young Somali girl growing up in the UK. In today's video, I actually did some exciting work. I'm in the middle of doing some exciting work. It's like part of this really exciting project I've been asked to be on. Sorry to be that babe, can't say what it is, but it really got me thinking. And it got me thinking about one of the first videos I did, which is about sex, sexuality and Somali women. I'll do a video on a similar vein specifically about that another time, but today I really wanted to talk about things that really are not normalized and things that are quite taboo in the Somali community. I want to talk about what it feels like when you question your faith, or if you have moments where you feel like you've questioned your faith. I know I felt like that, and how because Islam and the Somali culture are so inextricably intertwined, if you feel like you question your faith, you feel like you question your connection to your culture, and that paves the perfect path to an identity crisis. I have had my fair share of identity crises, but perhaps not like big ones, but definitely loads of little ones. And this all started, of course, when I was growing up. So I grew up in the Somali diaspora in the UK, and I feel like because of certain things that have happened, like of course Islam says you're not supposed to drink, you're not supposed to fraternize with members of the opposite sex, but I grew up in the UK, so I grew up, and I'm, you know, a straight woman, so when I, you know, first started seeing boys, like when I had my first boyfriend, there was a whole host of inner conflicts going on. So I when I moved away to university, I went to University of Cambridge, so I left London, and a lot of people were saying to my mum that she should never have let me move that, because I was going to, you know, stray and go down the wrong path. And I remember when I had my first sip of alcohol when I was 19 years old, I genuinely thought that the hand of God was gonna come down and strike me. Like, I felt so ashamed and also worried, and also like I'd lost that connection to my religion. And of course in Islam you don't have, like, or I didn't know of anyway, any imam, so these are like clergymen, for example, that I could go to and talk to, because it's all very, my experience of, if you do something wrong in Islam, it's always been very, you're gonna go to eternal damnation, like you're just going to hellholes, that's it, that's all we can say. So for me, I felt really like, yeah, like that, like I was gonna go to hell, and like I started questioning whether or not I was a Muslim anymore. Then things, obviously, when I got my first boyfriend, there's all sorts of things that go along with that, where I felt like, well, I'm no longer Muslim, so does that mean I'm no longer Somali? And I would have no one to talk to. Obviously I definitely still see myself as a Muslim now, but these were all things that I'd experienced, that inner conflict. Because I think people think that when you leave university, or when you go to university, or you move out from your family home, you kind of are like, oh, free from the patriarchal shackles of the family home, and so therefore people think you've like, go away, like I'm free. But actually there is a way more nuanced than that, and there's a lot of shame and internalized guilt that we have as Somali women, as Somali Muslim women, and it's that kind of shame and that inner conflict that I kind of want more representation on. Because if you think about mainstream media, like TV, film, books, you're either a repressed Muslim girl, or you've either seen liberation and you're free. But it's that middle ground that we don't really get much representation on, of like, well, I still want to identify as a Muslim, I still want to identify with my Somali culture, but I feel like I can't because I'm ostracized. And another thing that we don't really talk about is the double standards that we have. So for example, I can't speak, I'm not a Somali boy, and I know that Somali boys have a lot, and Muslim boys in general have a lot of you know, things that they're battling with as well. But I will say that Muslim women and Muslim girls are treated with double standards. So if we stray or do something which is not seen as not being very Muslim, then we definitely get a harder time of it than Muslim boys do. Muslim boys, like all boys from various different communities, are sort of given that, oh, but boys will be boys. And it was especially difficult for me personally, I think, because when I did graduate from university, and someone in my family actually, instead of congratulating me, or, you know, not that I'm expecting the red carpet to be rolled out, that's not my point. My point was, kind of comments were made to my mother and my siblings that they should be lucky that I didn't come home pregnant, which is like, I'm not the only one, like that's the thing, like I feel like I'm sharing this, but I'm not, like, for me it was so normalized as a young Muslim Somali girl that those are just the type of things that people say, and it's really sad. And it's even especially sadder if you want to forge a slightly different path for yourself, especially because with the whole like having alcohol or like dating boys, these are things no one talks about. And a lot of Somali girls, and I used to do it myself when I was a lot younger, live almost a double life, which is not fair because you're not living your true authentic self. So for example, in the family home, they'll like be covered up wearing a hijab and an abaya or whatever, and they'll go out with their friends like at night time, like a reverse Batman, where you go out and you like wear different clothing and like, you know, have different relationships and do different pastimes. And it's really difficult and it's incredibly unfair to live this kind of double life, and it is because of patriarchal standards, I feel, and like double standards. And that's especially what I felt in my life, because even though there are certain members of my family who aren't in my life anymore, because of the things I used to share on my YouTube and the things that I will continue to share now, there have been people who have sort of reached out and kind of been very quick to pass judgment. I've gone viral a few times for work and career updates, and always the first things you'll hear that I'll get from people when I say, oh, I'm the first Somali girl to do this, for example, people will, some older Somali men, will be very quick, will be the first ones in my comments, first of all, trolling me, and will also be very quick to dismiss my achievements because I don't wear the hijab, because I'm not dressed appropriately, or rather what they deem to be appropriate. And this is all a form of erasure, in my opinion, because I feel like I'm being erased from my Somali culture, my Somali identity, my religion. All of this is compounded by the fact that we live in the UK. So it's like you live at this intersection of all of these identities of being a Somali woman, of being Muslim, of also feeling quite Western, you know, lack of a better word, and living in the UK and wanting to do things like go out on a night out, have a few drinks, you know, fraternize with like the members of the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever your fancy is, and you can, but you can't, because, and then on top of it, you're not actually accepted by like maybe people who are from the UK originally. It's just, it's a lot basically, and it does pave the way for an identity crisis, as I said. In my own experience, I feel like for a couple years I felt like I couldn't claim being Muslim between university and about like my early 20s. For a couple of years there, I would say I just was like, what? And then I thought, how am I ever gonna tell people, like how am I ever gonna tell my family that I don't really feel like a Muslim anymore because I've had alcohol? Or how am I gonna tell my family that I don't really care if the man I marry is Muslim or not? How is this gonna work? I'm gonna have to completely lose my entire family. And then how am I gonna tell the person I want to settle down with and new friends that I make, because old friends obviously will understand because they know me for years, how am I gonna tell the man I decide to settle down with and my friends that actually my family aren't speaking to me anymore because I like gin? Like, it's really difficult, and I just wanted to kind of make this video to try and like normalize conversations like this. Obviously I've come a lot further now. I definitely believe that my religion is my religion, my culture is my culture. You can't take anything away from me, and I will live life on my terms, and I'll live life being my true authentic self. But that's because I'm a bit older now. I've had the space and the time to get away from these situations. I have had the chance and the space to set some boundaries and to reconcile things in my head and in my heart. And if I can't reconcile them, then I know at least to compartmentalize, because, you know, I've got to go to work every day. I can't just sit here pontificating how much I wish I could do that. Actually, no, I love my job. So I I'm a lot older now, basically, that's my point. I've had the space to think about these things, but it did get very tricky back then because, of course, losing my connection to the years where I did feel like I might be at risk of losing my connection to my faith meant that I would also lose my connection to my culture, meant that I would also lose my family. It's just a lot. But I just want to normalize conversations like this, like I said, and bring back this type of content to my channel, the content that I used to make. So I really hope you all enjoyed this video. Please, you know, take the time to live your authentic life, your authentic self, if you have the space to understand that you may not always have the space to be yourself, and there may be some compromises or some sort of hiding of yourself that you may have to do to keep yourself safe, because there are some very tricky situations out there and some tricky family members I have experienced, and I can only imagine what some other people may be experiencing. Please let me know what you thought in the comments below. I love you all, and I will see you all in my next video. Oh, and also let me know what kind of